The sexiest thing in the entire world is being really smart.
Welcome to Smart is Sexy, the podcast where we discuss self-development, love, business, spirituality, and becoming a smarter, sexier human. I am your host, Kelsi.
And I'm Celeste. Welcome to our show, y'all. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe right now, send to a friend, and please leave us a review after you listen. Today's episode is sponsored by Awaza. Awaza is an innovative functional coffee formula that aims to do more than just wake you up. It propels you upward and forward through your daily grind to help you achieve your goals. It's made with clean ingredients, keeping us both smart and sexy. Use code SMARTISSEXY for 20% off when you order online at drinkawaza.com.
You guys, we are back, part 2 with Drew Hanlen. If you have not yet, go back to last week's episode, listen to part 1, because there is some really, really amazing content. You gave us some gems, and I wish I would have taken some notes, but I'm going to go back and just
I love it.
Take notes and listen to it.
I know. I'm so excited. Okay. I do want to talk to you about some of your dating stuff, but I put on my story that we were going to take questions and I got so many. I really wasn't expecting to get so many, but we have to at least take a few.
Because, well, for sure. Because if people are asking, we don't give anyone what they want.
We have to take a few. So, my Instagram's just making noise.
Hello.
Please ignore. Okay, so let's start with a few questions from the audience, shall we? Some of them don't make sense to me because they're basketball related, and some of them I kind of just want to know what they mean. And then others are just normal questions. So the first one, I really just want to know what this means. It says, favorite drill to train driving to the left.
So basically that's somebody that's like one of my basketball followers. They want to know like if they need to improve their ability to like when they're attacking a defender and they're going to the left-hand side, like how do they improve that?
But I know this person and they're not a basketball player.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that was exactly what that question is.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was so confused. I was like, I knew it was
immediately when you
related.
said that, I was like, went into like, okay, if they're more unbalanced, if they have a wider stance, if they, have their shoulders and knees stacked up, then it's going to allow them to.
So do you have a favorite drill?
That's what I would do. I would just focus more on their posture. If they get stacked up where basically their head, shoulders, and knees are all aligned, they're in like a good balanced position, then they can like basically attack the defender's hip. And then it'll be more powerful and aggressive.
Okay. Love that.
Everyone that's not a basketball player, don't turn off. Don't worry. That's like our one basketball question.
Yeah, no, there's so many, but I don't know what they're saying. So we're going to ignore the one. Okay, so this one's kind of long, but I'm going to paraphrase it. And basically what they're asking is, you train the top athletes in the world who are in the NBA. How do you essentially prove your credibility, and how do you get them to listen to you from a perspective of not being in the NBA?
Of course. I'm going to take you back to a conversation I had with my first ever NBA client, which was David Lee. So David started working with me when I was 20 years old, I believe.
This is a basketball player? Sorry.
Yeah, this is a basketball player. And so the crazy thing was he was an NBA All-Star. I was playing at Belmont University, so I was a mid-major basketball player. At the time, I think I was averaging maybe like 6 points a game. And I remember, so we're at Cheesecake Factory, and Steph Curry was sitting there, and we're sitting there we're all talking. And Steph didn't know that I was still a player. Like, he just assumed I was just a trainer at that time, training David. And I remember David, made a comment about me playing against his brother, Seth Curry, who played at Duke at the time. And he was like, hey, Steph, are you going to go watch Drew play against, Seth? And he's like, oh, man, I didn't know you coached at Belmont. And he was like, no, he plays at Belmont. And Steph was like, time out. Like, you play at Belmont still? And then he started asking, he was like, why do you listen to this kid that plays mid-major basketball when you're an NBA All-Star? And David said something that was so powerful. It was like one of the my more proud moments when I was coming up. But he was like, listen, he's like, Phil Jackson, who's a legendary basketball coach. He's like, Phil Jackson wasn't better than Michael Jordan or Shaquille O'Neal or Kobe Bryant, but Phil Jackson helped make them better. Mm. And David was like, Drew's not a better basketball player than me, but he helps me become a better version of myself. And so when it comes to credibility and everything, it's just really, can you help players get results? And that's all it is. It's word of mouth. There's no certification. There's no school that you can go to be a basketball trainer. It's just, if you help players get results, more players want to sip on the same Kool-Aid, to go through the same workout programs, get the same mental coaching and training and have that same kind of level of detail and attention. So that's what it was. It was doing a really good job with one player that led to another player that led to another player. And eventually you build up this credibility for getting the job done.
Well, and I guess, I mean, I don't play any sports, but I would assume that part of coaching them is a lot mentality too, right? Which I feel like you have, that's like one of your like biggest strengths is like your mindset. And so helping them, walking them through that. So maybe that helps too.
That's actually a perfect little segue into our next question. How do you get yourself out of a mental funk? If
yeah,
you
I mean,
ever
the first,
have one.
that's what I was saying. The first thing is just don't let yourself get into one. But I mean, I know the reality is, most people do have like days where they wake up and they don't feel like doing things. Most people have, moments where life, throws a curveball at them and they have to stay in the batter's box and figure out ways to foul ball a few so that they can eventually be ready to make, get a hit or a home run. And so I would say the biggest thing is perspective, to be honest with you. So like, that's what snaps me back to everything. So I have a little sister that she's special needs. She's 16 years old. She's from Haiti. And I just think about her life and her world, and it just snaps everything back to reality. My family and I run an orphanage in Haiti. We've done that for a long time. My grandma worked with Mother Teresa. So my grandma like literally was in India with Mother Teresa and doing, all kinds of, the Lord's work. And so like growing up, where you just see, how blessed we truly are. Yeah. I think it just puts everything in perspective. Like, in part one, we talked about me like literally running out of gas on the highway. And when I pulled over to the side, I still am listening to the song. I was like, this is a fire song. I'm not going to let the gas running out on the highway ruin this song, And like most people don't have that. Most people be like, oh my gosh, now I have to walk. I'm going to be sweaty. I'm going to be sweaty for the podcast. And now, oh my God, they're going to be stressed out that I'm late. I just don't let my mind get to that. And so the science behind it is basically we have it's like a 3.7 second loop, the latest science says, where you have a 3.7 seconds between something, an action happening, and then you having a reaction. So basically what I always do is like you have 3.7 seconds to somehow take a breath, snap your fingers, do something to basically get back to like where you can make a good decision instead of a reactionary decision. So what I would say is if you're in a funk, the first thing I would do is like take a second to like really like have perspective, you're like, look up and you're like, wow, I have electricity. I have a house. I have a car. I have, a device. I have this and that. So like, there are so many people in this world that pray for the things that you take for granted on your worst days.
That is so true.
Think about that. There are so many people that pray for food, that pray for water, that pray for shelter, that pray for opportunity. We have all of those things on our worst days. And so like when people are like, I'm having such a bad day, I'm like, are you really having a bad day? And they're like, oh, the worst day. And then they'll start telling me like, they're like, I have too much on my plate. I'm like, isn't the goal to eat?
I was
like,
literally going to bring this up because that is my I have it written down in my notes because that was one of my favorite things ever. I remember I said to you when I was coming home, yeah, I just have a lot on my plate. And you were like, well, that's a good thing if the goal is to eat. And I was like, from that, I think I tweeted it. And from that point on, I was like, yeah, okay. The mindset.
It is so true. My mom says all the time, kind of like people pray for food, all the things that we have. And my mom's like, this is a problem of privilege. You ran out of the gas on the freeway. Well, how lucky you are that you have a car that's able to get you to point A to point B.
No doubt.
And so whenever I'm having days that I am complaining and frustrated about the things that I have always wanted in my life, too much work, or I'm so stressed out, my mom says, yeah, but you're here. You're literally living the dream, living what you've always worked for. And now you're complaining about the things. So put it into perspective. And then it brings you back down to, like you said, take a beat, have a moment to yourself of like, okay, yeah, this is frustrating, but.
And it's a mentality. It really is. Like, I don't know how many, like, this, but like there's so many people that they have designated me as their therapist because they know that I can handle it. And so I'll have people call me at like 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. Because they know I'm like the only person up at that point, like actually up, like awake at that point. And they'll call me, oh, I'm having such a bad morning. And I'm like, it is 6:30. How the hell are you having a bad morning?
They got up at 4:45.
It's just like at some point, do you not just like snap out of it? Like
no, and you know what I love with you is you never meet people down there. You always bring them up because I remember there's been times where I've asked you for advice or I've told you about a client or whatever, and I'll be telling you, and you don't ever like go down and kind of be like, oh, I'm here. Like it's not that. You're like, no. Snap out of it. Like let's talk about this. And I remember one time we were even having a conversation about money, and you said, You said making money is like breathing to me. And I was like, he just like swims through life. Like I need to be
I
that.
want to also swim.
Yeah, like he just like
But here's the thing, I'll interrupt, because I think that there's times though where during the swimming through life that you're paddling like hell, doggy paddling underwater just to stay afloat. You're going to have those moments. But the big thing is like, you don't drown by falling in water. You drown by staying underwater. And that's where most people mess up, is they're constantly letting themselves go under and trying to like, it's like just paddle like hell sometimes. And then you know what? The other times, then you can freestyle.
No, that's a great point.
No, that's good.
Are we going with your questions next, or do you want me to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay. This one says, if you were to strip you of all your followers and relationships, but you kept your knowledge, how would you rebuild from nothing except your skill and knowledge?
Here's something that's crazy. I got asked the other day, like, do you fear that you're going to lose it all? And like my mentality, I actually like sometimes wish I lost it all in a weird way, you know, because it's just like, no, it's in a weird way. It's just like one of those things where like, the reason I started the second phase of my career, like, is because I felt like on the basketball phase, like I had figured a lot out. Like there's still so many things that I'm trying to learn. There's still, you know, obviously the game evolves. You have to constantly evolve with the game. You know, each client has individual challenges and unique things that you have to kind of deal with. But I got to the point where I was like, there is no like up. Like you can be a better trainer, and you can get more all-stars. But it's like at the same time, there's not like, I'm not chasing anything anymore. And so that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to write a book. Like I want to be a New York Times bestseller, you know? And then I was like, all right, I want to do speaking, keynote speaking, but like, I want to be the best speaker in the world. Now, not just to be the best. I don't care if other people think I'm the best. I just want like people to be like, when I read his book, like I was touched, I was motivated, I was activated. When I was at a speaking engagement with him, like I've been to a million speaking engagements where, you know, they were like self-help, you know, kind of themes, but like, he actually helped me help myself.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't fear losing it. What I would answer is, I think that the persistence that I've, you know, had my entire life, the ability to endure through anything is another thing. And I think just the knowledge of, if I started over, I actually sometimes think I'd build it better, because I would be equipped with, you know, the knowledge that I have to be like, all right, here are some of the things that I did based on loyalty. Cause there's so many times where I'll have somebody, I hire them, and then maybe I outgrow them, and I'm like, I pigeonhole them into something that maybe they're not best at. There maybe is somebody that's better at the role that I give them, but I'm just so loyal that I like keep them in that position.
Yeah.
So like, if I started over fresh, I'd be like, okay, knowing everything I know now, here's where I need to play, and here's the things I need to do. But yeah, I don't fear losing everything. I think like when you talk about relationships too, I think that like somebody the other day told me, they're like, oh my God, you have all the power, because I was like, I don't fear losing anybody.
You have that
like,
detachment.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that that's also what continues to bring you like a lot of opportunity and success, because you're not like, you don't put things on pedestals. You kind of just like, everything just is to you. Like it just is what it is. Good, bad, indifferent. It kind of just is.
I really feel like you're always doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing with who you're supposed to be doing it with at that exact moment. And like, it's weird because I'm not super religious. I was raised, you know, Catholic. I definitely believe in God, but like, I'm not one of those people that's like, your life has been written. I'm like, no, time out. Like, God's given you like a lot of key ingredients and given you all the equipment you need to like make the cake.
Yeah.
But like, you've got batter and flour and oil and butter, but you got to make that shit. Like you have choices to make. And I think that most people pray for cake instead of pray for the ingredients to build the cake. And I think that like, that's what life offers, is we all have the ingredients we need to find success. And here's the thing that I also don't go down to the people that have excuses for all the past. I understand that some people are born on second and some people are born on third. You know, I don't agree with the people that like were born on second and they're cheering that they're on second. It's like, yeah, but you were born there.
Right.
So I do kind of emphasize more, you know, with the people that like start at home and like have a rougher upbringing. But at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't matter, because somebody out there has been dealt a worse hand and is playing it better.
Great point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. That's a good one. Do you want me to go?
Oh, well, you just mentioned your book, and someone did ask if you could give a sneak peek into your book, which I thought.
Yeah, so I can run through
Yes, tell
the
us about
chapters
it.
and stuff like that. So it's called Stop Bullshitting Yourself. And it's literally about winning the battles and conversations that take place in your head and your heart, even the ones that you don't know you're playing. Mm-hmm. And so it basically goes through, number one is called the bullshit, which is like identifying all the bullshit that is in your life, all the excuses, all the justifiable reasons, all of the countless kind of reasonings that we've allowed ourselves to settle for less than what we deserve. That's number one. Second thing is like the audit. So we go through and take you through an audit of like the present, the past, and the future. Like, what are you currently doing that's holding you back, causing you stress, causing you insecurities, causing you drama? Why does that exist? Probably because of your past. How did we get here? And then the future, like what are the things that we need to do that change so that the future, is better than, current situation. Then we go into kind of a blueprint, giving them an actual blueprint to take action, because so many books like encourage you to do things, but you don't know where. You're like, I'm motivated, but like, how do I start? Like, sign me up, but like, how do I actually get going? Take them through like an actual blueprint so that like it's a strategic development plan so that you can actually make changes. Talks about like shrinking the finish line so that you can actually sprint instead of like looking at it like, oh my God, these things in the future are great, but like, how do I get there? Talking about making little micro shifts instead of big things.
I remember that one.
Yeah, like you want to start a diet and everyone's like, all right, perfect, I'm going to do this new diet. It's like, okay, why don't we just say that like every time you have a meal, split it in half, and if you eat half and you're still hungry, you can eat the other half, but like most of the time portion control is what you're really after. And then little things like you don't want to snack as much. Okay, we'll go through everything out that's, bad in your house. Or, oh, well, I have a partner that wants to eat those snacks. Okay, then have a little note card on it that says this is 360 calories, which takes you 45 minutes of Stairmaster to do. So if you want a handful of chips, you have to do 45 minutes of Stairmaster. Are you willing to make that sacrifice or trade? Like,
no,
you don't realize it. Yeah, like
there are going to be stickies everywhere in my fridge.
Like, but it's just basically the blueprint is making it easier to win and harder to lose. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Then after that, it goes through the work. So it's like actually like here are the phases of the work. Like how do you actually master like what I call the unseen hours? Like when no one's watching, how do you actually stay disciplined and like keep the promises you set with yourself? Then we go through a refinement. So the refinement is like how do you constantly make little pivots and adjustments so that you keep winning those battles and challenges? And then the final aspect is like, there's like basically like a decision like to make. Like, are you actually going to like get to the point where you say enough is enough? Like, you have to get yourself to that point where enough is enough, because you can't scare people into action. It's crazy. If you've ever traveled in Europe, like in Europe on cigarettes, there's literally like warnings that say like, these cigarettes will kill you. It's literally.
And everyone is smoking them.
And then people still buy them and you're like,
yeah, it doesn't work.
And so like to use this for example was actually really cool. I had a cool moment yesterday. So yesterday, my dad was at a barbecue. And so my dad, I've been big on like, I wrote about him in the book because he lost 95 pounds in a calendar year. And it was based on these little small micro shifts and micro changes. And he was like, Drew, I like beer and I like barbecue better than I like water and salad. Like, I'm not changing that because I want to live happily. Like, I'll be miserable if I'm only eating, salads and drinking water. I'm like, we don't have to change. Let's change your portion size. Let's get you out of the house, start walking an hour a day. Let's do these little things that can help you. He lost 95 pounds. And so he started gaining back some of the weight, which happens all the time. We all shift back to kind of our natural, whatever's most comfortable. And I told my dad, I said, if you want to be in the book by my birthday, which is September 28th, you have to be at this certain weight. If not, I'm removing you out of the book.
Ouch.
And he was like, I got this. So he's at a barbecue yesterday and my uncle called me and said, he's like, I'm so mad at you right now. Your dad won't even enjoy a beer from me. He just gave me a hard no. And he said, I want to be in Drew's book.
Aww.
And I was like, I had a proud moment because I'm like, he's staying disciplined, which is what we most of the time lack. We mostly lack discipline. And, but that's what the book is all about. It's about helping people get out of shitty relationships that they know they should get out of.
That was me. And then when you were writing it, I'm sitting there crying. I wasn't even sad about the relationship. I was just sad about everything I was dealing with. This is when I was going through a breakup. And I remember you were like, okay, we got to go to this chapter because you need to.
But it's funny because.
Let me reread you what I just wrote.
You're actually who I'm writing about right now.
Yeah.
So,
But it was one of those things, again, it's the black and white for me. It's like she was telling me all these bad things and she was like, he's a good person, but. And I'm like, everything before but is bullshit. Yeah. It is. You're justifying why you're giving him other chances when you shouldn't. And
no, and even I remember before we broke up, I was talking to you and you were like, based on everything I was saying, you're like, you got to leave this guy, right? And I was like, yeah.
She did. She told me like she spent like 15 minutes like, he's a great guy, but he's a great guy, but I love this, but. And I was like, she's like, so what would you do? I'm like, it's pretty obvious. Like, what do you mean? Like, the guy is terrible for you.
Yeah,
I was like,
terrible.
leave him. And she's like,
Yeah.
I know, but. And I'm like, no. I was like, that's what you need to do. I was like, and she's like, well, what would you do if? And I'm like,
We were
I'm
at
not
a
even
Rams
going
game.
there.
No, we were
Yeah.
at a Rams game, and there's a whole ass football game going on, and he's like, break up with this guy.
I'm like, it's easy.
And then I did. It was so.
And then I did.
But here's the thing. I really mean this. And this is like the kind of the depth of the book, but it's like every one of us has deep, dark secrets that we don't want people to reveal about us. And every single one of us has these conversations that we know we need to have with ourselves that we are scared shitless to have.
Yeah.
And that conversation is the most important conversation we need to have.
Yeah.
But what we do is we have all these other external conversations with everybody. And we're like, we go to you, we tell us, here are all the problems in the relationship. Here are all the problems with my job. Here are all the problems with my weight. Here are all the problems with whatever you're struggling with. And you tell them just so that they say, it's okay. Like, again, one of the things that in part one we talked about, I was really proud that, I've got to a point where at least I can have a little more kind of connection with everybody in the audience. Cause I used to be a little bit too hard on people when I was speaking to them, when I was giving them advice. And, but one of the things that like people would say is like, hey, Drew, I've always struggled cause I'm a little bit more big boned. And I'd be like, just so you know, there's no such thing as big bone. You're fat. Like
Right.
because you're lazy
honest.
in your workout habits or you eat like shit and they're like, I'm like, that's the truth. There's no such thing as being big boned.
No, it is the
Now
truth.
you can have genetics that set you up but you have to activate those genetics. You can still, there's people that have fat parents that are skinny. There are people that have been fat that have become skinny. Like you control the cards that you're dealt. And so I think that's the biggest thing with her. She was giving me all these reasons. And what happens is she'll go to you or she'll go to her other friends. She'll go to her other friends and everyone's like, you know what, just give it a little more time. Or maybe you could have this conversation.
Literally every single person was like, end this shit. And I was like, what do I do?
Yeah, but that's what it's about. It's about getting yourself to the point where you say, enough is enough. I deserve more.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, no, it was super funny. I remember, I think it was just, I had a lot going on at that time. But anyways, you helped me through that. Thank you very much. You've helped me with a lot of things, so I definitely appreciate
She
that.
definitely called me and told me that. She's like, well, I just cried quite literally on Drew's
which is
shoulder.
just funny because one, like I'm not a big crier, period, and then I secondly just it will never happen in front of anyone on the bike except you. So that was like,
I mean, I haven't even seen you cry that many times. So
Yeah.
I'm
No, it was-
the
it
fact
was-
that you pulled it out of her was great.
I was like, yeah,
I
no,
love
it's
it.
funny. Okay, what is one thing you must have to be an NBA player, or what is something top athletes know that we don't?
I mean, listen, I think the thing that people don't realize about these athletes is there's such a gap between like the best of the best and then even just good professional athletes and then just college basketball players, et cetera. So there's huge gaps. And I think there's so much that goes into it. One is just talent. Some of that is just, some people are taller, some people are shorter. People always ask me like, why didn't you make the NBA if you're so good? And I'm like, well, one, I wasn't good enough. But two, the last time a white American under 6 foot was drafted in the NBA was 1990. That's a
Shut
fact.
up.
32 years.
Wow.
And so I was like, there's just some things that you can't control. I can't control that I'm 5'11". Now, there have been players in the NBA that have made it that were under 5'11", but it's not as likely.
Right.
For instance, like 1/5 of registered 7-footers like have a chance to play professional basketball in the world. That's pretty crazy. So
That's pretty
you're saying
crazy.
20% of people, if you're 7 foot, you have a 20% chance of playing in the NBA.
Right.
So, or some kind of level of professional basketball. So I think that, one is talent.
Mm-hmm.
Two is mentality. Because I've seen so many talented players that didn't have the right mentality. They didn't have the right discipline. They didn't have the right drive. They didn't have, the right things around them that really pushed them and pulled them in the right direction. So I think the second thing is just that discipline, that mentality, that I always call it the it factor. You can't really explain it. I'm like, if you don't know what it is, you don't have it. Like,
So true.
it's just like some people just have it, and it's the ability to figure shit out.
Yep.
That's what it really is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like you're down in a game, you figure out a way to win it. There's you're an entrepreneur and there's a fire, you figure out a way to, put it out. There's so many things that, but that's what separates the great athletes is there's a level of talent that's required to even give yourself a chance and an opportunity. But there's so many people that do have a chance and opportunity that don't make it because they don't have that it factor.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that applies to business and artists and just anyone.
I mean, yeah, anyone who wants to master their craft, there is an it factor.
It was cool. I had somebody I golfed with the other day that came in town, and 15 years ago they hired me to do my first ever travel camp that like I flew to. I was driving around the Midwest everywhere, but I flew to Portland, Oregon. They gave me $750 for the camp, and I had to pay for my own flight, which was like $500. You know, they let me stay on their couch, but it was like I was just happy because I was like, I'm finally getting to do a travel camp.
Yeah.
And but they came in and they were telling everyone in the gym, they're like, just so you know, 15 years ago when Drew was working out literally 6th grade girls and boys, he was telling everybody that he was going to be the best in the world. He was going to be a multimillionaire when there was no such thing as training and being rich. Those were independent things. You couldn't be a rich trainer. You had to be either a trainer that made nothing, but you loved doing it, or you could be a businessman that made money. And I was like, no, I'm going to figure out a way to do both. And so like, I feel like you almost have to like believe, like there was never a doubt in my mind. Like people still like, I'm writing this book and I don't even have a first draft that's completed. Like I have a blueprint. I have all the words written, everything like that, but I haven't put it all together. And I'm like, there's no doubt this is gonna be a bestseller. Like even when publishers are coming and like trying to negotiate with me, I'm like, I might self-publish because I know I can make it without you guys. And they're like, there's a level of swagger that like brings them back to the table because I'm like, let me sell 10,000 copies on my own. Then I'll come to you guys and you're going to have to write me a check.
For sure, because when they leave the room, they're like, wait a minute, am I missing something that this guy just believes in himself so much? Like, wait, hold on, let me come back and actually give you what you want or even more than what you're asking
With the publishing
for.
deals, that's what I'm doing. I literally told them, I'm like, I want to buy the first 10,000 copies.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Like that would make you a New York best time seller. I'm like, yeah, because I know I'm going to sell them.
That's
and they're just like, it's just a different level of swagger. And I feel like that's what you need.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Wow.
All right, we'll do one more and then we'll wrap it up. I just have so many that I like feel bad not taking them. Okay, I'm gonna do this one because I thought it was funny. It says Kobe or Braun.
That's an interesting one because I'm always like Michael Jordan is the GOAT.
You talk about Michael Jordan a lot.
What
like
is
the reason for that?
So when I grew up, I'm from St. Louis, and when I grew up, I was born in '89. So Michael Jordan was like in his dominance right there.
Yeah.
So like when I grew up, that was what drew me to basketball. That's why I loved basketball, was because of Michael Jordan. The reason I have my mentality was literally because of Michael Jordan. Like when I used to get grounded, I used to get where I couldn't watch Michael Jordan games. I still have VHS.
That was your punishment?
Of course.
That is
because that was the thing I wanted
thing.
most. That was the thing I liked to do the most.
Your mom's like, you know what?
What do you take away from a kid that like doesn't care about anything?
No,
else?
That is the funniest punishment.
Yeah,
I mean, that's amazing.
I remember there was one time it was a playoff game, and I got grounded from Michael Jordan because I forgot what I did. I was like, I think I had like talked trash to somebody at the school or something. I did something. I forgot what I did to get in trouble, and so my punishment was I couldn't watch the game that night, and I grabbed my dad's Walkman radio. That's old school. Some people won't even know what a Walkman radio is, but I grabbed the Walkman so I could listen to it. So I'm in my room and I had put it under my pillow so I could hear it, but I could press my head so that they couldn't hear it. So I was listening to the game. I remember my dad would come in, I'd turn it off, act like I was sleeping, and turn it back on.
And was it one of the ones that like clicked? Because
it was like one of those, it was like a big box. Like,
so like
bulky.
it's pretty bulky.
Yeah, so I was under it like this. And I remember, and there was one time that like I did it, and like for whatever reason I got excited or something, and then I got caught up with doing it. But like that's how obsessive I was with basketball. But to answer the question, it's weird because I had a chance to meet both of them. Mm-hmm. I think they're so different in the aspect of I think LeBron definitely has had a better career. Like if I had to rank them, I would say LeBron. I would put him up. But I more connect with Kobe just because he had more of a like put the team on the back and like I'm either gonna win it or I'm gonna lose it. Like y'all are on the ride. So I would say I relate more to Kobe, but if I had to rank them, I would definitely put LeBron at top.
Okay, interesting. All right. Okay, that was honestly so fun. It like kind of made me interested in basketball now because now I'm like curious. I like all the mindset
are you
stuff.
gonna start playing?
Yeah, no, but I just like I like the mindset stuff. I think it's kind of fun.
I would definitely come to some of your games.
Oh, would you? Maybe I'll go hop
that
on
would
a
be
team.
priceless content right there. Priceless content. She'd
Drew
be
and I would both
I'm
be
trying to
at your
get this
games.
thing all the way up there. Like, how is that even possible?
Okay, you guys, watch me be like
And
a
she'd be
natural
like-
born.
But she'd then be like, but how's my ponytail?
Yeah,
Is
I
my
would have
pony
to do the
looking good?
pony.
Yeah.
Are they? Yeah, the outfits aren't like my vibe.
And you'd have
so-
to take your nails off.
Yeah, no, that's where I draw the line. Would I have to do that?
Well, I mean, you wouldn't have to, but you'd probably break a nail every once in a while.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Fuck basketball. No, I'm just kidding.
okay.
I just like
This just took a really crazy turn.
We're gonna leave my nails.
Okay.
Okay. Move off the career stuff so that we can move into the fun stuff, and then we'll wrap with the sexy.
Yes. Because there's a lot of girl time that goes on when it's just the two of us. We love when we have men on and we can kind of hear their perspective on dating. So
Look at his face.
No, I love it. I love it because you don't know how much trouble we give Austin Mills from being on your podcast and him thinking that he's the only male that holds a door for a female. You don't understand. So we always joke around because now he's got a serious girlfriend. But anytime that I like introduce him to one of my friends that's a girl, I'm like, hey, me and my good friend Austin Mills, he holds doors for girls. So yeah, so just so you guys know, we love that clip. We think that was golden because he felt like, you know, he was one of one.
I also just love that the pod made the group chat. Like that to me is like
So
top
good.
tier, but that is
Austin
so
Mills,
funny.
DJ, you know, entrepreneur, door holder. Yes.
Okay, that is. Oh my god, he did say that. That's very true.
And it is crazy because there are a lot of men who hold doors for women. A lot.
Trust me, I was raised old school too, where my dad like made us walk on the inside of the road.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh
You
my god, you
know,
always
and-
have to walk. And for anybody listening, this is the sidewalk rule. You gotta move the girl to the inside of the sidewalk as a courtesy. Although I did see one tweet that was like, "What happens if like a Camaro runs us both over or something?" Because it was like saying like, "What's the point? Like, there's nothing I can do if something really goes down." But I think it's just the intention.
It's a principle
is cute.
thing.
It's the
Yeah, it's a
principle.
principle
It definitely
It's
is.
the principle of like move her to the inside of the street. Okay, so we have a lot of girls who listen, but we also have a lot of guys who listen, and we get so many questions about dating. And I think it's because a lot of our listeners want to know from the perspective of somebody who's high value. You're very successful, you do well, you live a very like exciting lifestyle, and a lot of them probably either want to be like you or they want to date somebody like you. So what do you look for in women that you would maybe be interested in?
I think it's changed over the years. I mean, obviously the first thing, there has to be a level of attraction. You know what I mean? To even be interested in somebody. But I think for me nowadays, it's literally about like the internal piece that I talked about. You know, like I look at somebody, I'm like, do they love life? Are they going to add no stress to my life? Are they going to add more excitement? Like, are they able to like get past little indifferences? Are they secure? Because I mean, my lifestyle is not easy to be with because I'm on the road 200 days a year sometimes. And, you know, I'm around a bunch of celebrities and famous athletes that also bring around, you know, attractive girls and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think those are some of the things. I think the big thing is like, I kind of like when it's like, obviously there has to be that attraction, but after that, it's like, how can I find somebody that is so content with their life and they're winning in their own regard and allows me to win in my own regard, where then we can boost each other together and then we can win beyond what we could have won.
Did we just talk about this? I feel like you and I just had this conversation about like, you have to like be good. You have to like be passionate on your own. Was that not you?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't me because the person which is weird because I just had this conversation with my boyfriend. So it's weird that I was like, I just had this
can't remember
conversation.
who I had it with, but I just had this conversation.
So we're all on the same vibe.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
But I would say this though. I would add to that and say, like, it's not my responsibility to make sure that you're good. And it's not your responsibility to make sure I'm good.
Yep.
Hopefully, when you're down, I can bring you up. And if I'm down, which I try not to let myself get down, then you can bring me up. But like, I think that's where people go wrong is they start placing responsibility of their happiness on the other person. And the other person doesn't know how to handle it. Weird thing, I just got, I was in this little thing to like get certified to do a certain type of therapy. And I learned something where it's like basically like we all have an adult and a child version of ourselves. And when one person goes into child mode, which would mean like they're like in their feelings, the other person rises up and goes even more in adult mode. That's when this person's talking down to this person, this person's that
resonates.
So if you both aren't on this level of adult, as soon as somebody starts dropping, the other one starts rising. Now you guys aren't on the same level. So now this person feels like they're responsible for that other person. And that's when, conflict happens. So you just got to make sure that my thing is a vibe. Like I just want good energy, good people. Like
right.
That's what I'm after at this point in my life.
So we talk a lot about high value men and like qualities that high value men have. What are qualities that you consider in like a high value woman? Like you said vibe, like you guys are both kind of like working together and creating together, but what are like characteristics, like specific things you're like, wow, that's a high value woman?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is just somebody that like is just glowing through life, you know, like just wakes up and is like attacking the day or just, and I don't even care if they do anything. Like it's the point where like, no, like
I gotta tell you, high value women, I do care if
no,
you
but
do
like
something.
here's what I'm saying. Like I think that everyone needs something that they're passionate about, and I think they need to have something they're waking up and that's fueling them. Because I don't think like if you said a high value woman, I don't think that she's somebody that just does whatever the guy. You know, I'm not like that old school where like
For
the girl
sure.
just is
Hell
like
no.
that person's husband. You know,
Yeah.
that's the husband, that's the wife. Like, but I'm saying like more so in the aspect of I don't care what they do, in the aspect of they could be volunteering for an animal shelter. They could be not doing nonprofits. They could also be building the
Yeah.
biggest business and being the biggest boss ever.
Right.
It's just whatever they're doing, I hope they're kicking ass doing
Yeah.
it. You know? And so, because I also think the good thing is, like, it's not like we need financially anything from them when I'm dating them. Like, I'm one of those, like, I'm very old school in the aspect of, like, I never let even I love when they offer it just because I'm like, wow, that's dope that you even think about it. But like,
Yeah.
I would never let somebody even touch their money.
I love that. I honestly really appreciate that because I've seen takes from women that are like, oh, I want to split because I want to be equal, whatever. I got to tell you, I don't want to split. I will offer it because I can pay for my own life and like I can hold myself down. But I do appreciate if a guy is courting you and like they
Absolutely.
pay. I think I agree with that. I like that perspective.
But yeah, I mean, I just think good energy, good vibes. And then also like, if you talk about like high quality women, I think I love when people go out of their way to do little things to help you out that you don't have to ask for. You know, I think it's one thing if you're like, hey, babe, is there any way that, you know, whatever. But if they just like kind of feel that energy and they're like,
Yeah.
you know, like for me, I Postmates way too much. Like I spend like a Midwestern salary on Postmates every year. You know what I mean? And so just coming home from workouts after a long day or big long and like having like a meal cooked, you're like, and it doesn't have to be all the time because then it becomes just like every once in a while you're like, wow, that's amazing. Or
Yeah.
like little things like that where they're thoughtful or like, you know, if I'm doing an event, then being like, hey, is there anything that I can do? Like, do you need help with sending out this or can I be there? Like just support.
Yeah, support that's tailored to your lifestyle.
Of course,
because
yeah.
there's a lot of like it differs from person to person, but like I agree with you that like acts of service are like that's your love language. Like you
I was just
love,
gonna say that.
yeah, like that is something that you appreciate. Where you're like you've just paid attention to the things that are little needs in my life that would make my life a little bit easier without me having to ask for it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Okay, so from the alternate perspective, we have a lot of guys that listen to the podcast. And like I said, there's probably a lot of them that are building their life and they want to be like somebody like you. And there's also simultaneously, there's a lot of conversation in the media right now about what masculinity should look like. And there's like a lot of opposing views. From your perspective, like what is that? What is the goal or like what is a good, like what is masculinity to you and what are some things that these guys who are trying to grow their career and like become their best self, what should they be striving towards?
That's the funny thing. I just think it's like literally, I keep going back to it, but like inner peace. Like it doesn't matter.
Like as long as it works for you type
Yeah,
thing?
like I feel like so many people are trying to build this image of being good instead of actually working to be good.
Yeah.
You know? And so like, I think there's nothing more, like you guys say smart is sexy. Like to me, one of the things that I think is like sexy is just like confidence.
Yeah.
Like confidence where it's like, listen, like I really don't care what you think. This is what makes me feel good. This is what makes me feel empowered. This is what makes me. And so I feel like that's what it is. It's like swagger. Like if you said, what is masculinity? It's like somebody that just has such like, it's like an 8 Mile. Like if you think about 8 Mile at the end of the movie, when Eminem is on, on the mic and he starts talking, he says like, you guys did hook up with my girl and, I did this and I did get jumped and I did that. He basically says all of his insecurities, all of his vulnerabilities. And he's like, but I know something about you and like reveal some things. When he talks to the mic, he has nothing to say back because he's like, B-Rabbit just said everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like that's what masculinity is to me is when you're so comfortable in your own skin that the person that you're portraying you are is the person who you actually are.
Yeah. No. And I think even with you, I think you can tell too. Like I can tell when somebody's faking it and when somebody who is is who they really, you know.
I mean, this is my only frame of reference, but like, especially in LA, like so many people on social media, when you go out, they're like trying to portray themselves in a certain light as a certain person. And you can feel that from that person where you're like, okay, this just feels so disingenuous. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think also like transparency, like, you know, this, cause we talk all the time, like, it just is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, she's heard me like talk to girls before and I'll be like, I would be the best side dude ever. And she's like, what did you just say? I'm like, well, like, I'm not in a
he
place
says
to
it.
do that. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, cause then it is what it is. And they can't
Yeah.
get mad when you put, you know, all the cards on the table. And so, not saying that's the best go-to opening line, but like at sometimes it's just like people respect the, you know, the honesty.
I agree. Cause if you
Because it's not
bullshit
real.
me and you're like, no, and you finesse me and you're like, oh, you want to be in something, but then on the other side of it, you're like, actually, I didn't want any of those things. And I just told you that to get with you. You're like, wait, what? That's such a weird, just be upfront and honest with it.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to because it's a game. It's you know, I want to say everything I can do, and because getting the girl or getting the guy, you know, whatever, you know, whoever's listening, that is like almost, it's like an act of like, I'm good enough for that person.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's validation that like,
Yeah.
I'm good enough for that
Yeah.
person. That person wants me. And so they put on this image and they become who that person wants them to become so that they can, you know, check off the box. And it's like, trust me, I've done that. You know, I've had the games in the past and done that stuff, but now like I'm at a place where it's just like, you either like me or you don't like me. Like,
Well, I think
it
in
is what it
LA
is.
too, like, especially in that whole like Hollywood scene, I think a lot of people like go date other people for show because they need it to look a certain way. I don't even think they like each other half the time. I think they just, and then they have like, you know, their side girl and their side, you know, and then it's like just a complete mess. And I'm like, who are you doing this for? Because first of all, nobody cares. Like, I mean, I personally don't care who anybody is dating ever. So I just think it's funny that they're like so outside of themselves for this look to seem a certain way. All right. What else you got?
No, I definitely agree. Well, so to wrap up episodes, we always talk about what is the sexiest thing to you. You kind of just told us like inner peace. Anything else that you feel like is your
this is your
sexiest
sexy,
thing?
sexy.
Yeah.
This is like every episode we do.
I told Kelsi I was gonna say, you know, man, just like big baggy sweatpant outfits, you know, no bra on. That really is like my go-to. Shout out Celeste.
So that,
but
okay. Oh, I mean, I can go.
no,
Do you
but
all
I
want me
honestly,
to leave?
I honestly think that to me, like the sexiest thing in a girl, obviously, like I talked about the attraction and stuff like that, but attraction aside, it's just like when somebody's so comfortable in their own skin, when somebody is just like waking up passionately, not letting themselves have a bad day, when there is like, you know, kind of a bad moment or something's thrown in, you know, in their world, they're like, you know what, it is what it is. They take a deep breath and they're like, now it's my chance to respond. So I just think that's so attractive. Like I really do, because
very much agree.
and I think it's rare.
very.
I think it's very rare. Like, you
I was
know,
actually going to ask you that, like when you were mentioning all the things about a high value woman, do you meet a lot of them in LA?
no,
Really?
that's my biggest problem. I think my biggest problem is there's a lot of girls that are attractive enough where you're like, okay, I'd hook up with that
right.
person. But like when it comes to like actually dating somebody, my biggest fault has been I am so positive all the time. And not many people are like that. And I'm not saying they have to match that level of positivity, but it's like, I want somebody that like is kind of like you said, swimming through life. Like, you know what I mean? Like really riding. And I mean, listen, there's a lot of things that everyone can brag about what they can offer and bring to the table. There's wealthier guys than me. There's guys with bigger houses, bigger cars, bigger whatever. But I'm like, when it comes to just like peace, like I'm going to provide peace. And like, that's like my power. And so I want somebody else that shares that same power of just like, bring me peace. Because can you imagine like if every day, like you think about those like, you know, romantic comedy kind of, you know, things in the movies. And I always see like this scene, it's weird, but like when I visit, but like think about on the couch when they're like pillow fighting with their like significant other and there's just like so much peace and so much joy. And it's like, you don't ever see that in long-term relationships. Like they lose that. You know, they stop dating each other. They start becoming like each other's partners. And it's like, I want to keep dating that person.
You always say
know?
that. You guys say a lot of the same things because she
Yeah.
always says that. She's like, she hates the term settle. I'm not going to really speak for you, but she hates the term settle down because she's like, why are we settling for anything?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
word settled to me is like kind of negative because you're like you're going for something that's
You don't wanna
less
settle
than
on
what you
anything in
actually
life,
want.
yeah.
So to me, like I was talking to my boyfriend the other night, and he is someone who's very, very confident in who he is. Like, he's just like, this, you get what you get with me. Like, as far as like, I'm not trying to be anything more than what I am. And we were talking about, like, I said something that I was like, I just want to sit home on Friday nights and not do anything. And he goes, absolutely not. He goes, we are never going to be the couple that just sits home on Friday nights and just hangs. Like, he's like, maybe once in a while, but he's like, I want us to be doing things and meeting people and having like a very full, adventurous life. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, okay, so we're not sitting home on a Friday night, never mind. But I liked that. I appreciated that he was like, no, we're gonna be like always doing things, learning new things, going on an adventure, challenging ourselves. And I'm like, all right. So
The other weird thing that I think about is when I'm working with people and like trying to help them find that inner peace that I've been talking about, I always talk about there's really like a dozen of defining moments in our lives. Dozen. Like, even something as small as like if you just didn't respond to that DM, your entire world could be different. You know, if you took a certain job opportunity, world could be different. If you decided not to move, world different. Like, there's only like a handful of them. Literally like 5 to 12 moments that completely alter and define your entire life. And so, but also a lot of those moments are reversible. And that's where people don't realize it. So it's like they're like, oh my God, I just wish I would have never met the person. I'm like, you realize you can not unmeet the person, but you can break up and leave that person, you know, or jobs are like, oh, this job sucks. 71% of Americans say they hate their job right now. Hate. It's a strong word.
That's
71%.
That's a big number.
and it's a strong word and a large
And
number.
here's the other wild thing. So let's assume that like your work life, you know, is 60 years. Let's say you're working from, 18 to say you go long, whatever. But say you're working for 60 years, and let's say you work 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day is 1/3 of your life. And really it's 1/2 of your waking life, but 1/3 of your life. That means 20 years out of your 60 years you're working. The other 20 years you're sleeping if you sleep 8 hours a night. So that means literally 66% of your life is doing something you hate or sleeping.
Yeah.
Then you start talking about breaking into like social media usage right now, like average person, on their phone, like 6 hours a day. That's literally the number right now, 6 hours, 2.5 hours is social media. So now 6 hours a day. Then you talk about commercial usage, TV usage, all of this kind of stuff. And you're looking at like maybe 2% of your life you're actually like doing the things you like.
Holy
and enjoy.
shit, I need to reevaluate some things.
Yeah.
That's a long
Every
number.
time I get your phone usage thing,
Yeah.
on your on Sunday nights, you'll
It's
get like
wild.
I always am like, oh, that number needs to drop.
Yeah, that's high.
But if you really audit your time, it brings so much awareness to like what you're doing. And that's why I'm like, make sure you do a job that you love doing. Now, there's going to be parts of every job that we don't enjoy doing. You have to do some things to get the things that you want, but at some point you have to enjoy it. Otherwise, you're literally spending a good portion of your life doing something. The other thing, people, the people you're around, the people, your friends, the people you're dating, etc. If you don't enjoy them, again, why?
Yeah.
I would rather do something like that's whack with dope people than do something dope with whack people.
I completely agree. Completely agree.
I always say that would rather spend time by myself than and do literally nothing, maybe even just read a book, than go out and be with people just to say I'm being around people.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, this sucks. All right, what's your sexy?
Okay, well, my sexy is about eyebrows, because every week when I watch back the videos, I'm always like, my eyebrows suck. Yes. And so lately I've been obsessing over my eyebrows and other people's. And I'm always like, how do all these girls have these really great eyebrows? And I'm like, every time I do mine, I'm thinking, this is it. I've nailed
what's wrong with yours?
I don't know, but
I like
when
them.
I take
Do you have like microblading or no?
no, I don't. So maybe I need to do that.
That's our birthday present. We're gonna get her.
Okay,
that way she has flawless.
Yeah.
So every time we
Now I'm,
film
like, staring
and
at
it
her eyebrows.
pictures, yeah, but it's on camera. By the way, every time I look at myself on camera and on pictures, I'm always
Camera's
like,
tough.
I thought I looked so much cuter than that.
No, camera's
So-
hard. Camera changes the game. Camera's
Yeah.
like, who, like,
So
yeah.
I have been looking at video of myself and at photos, and I'm always like, damn, my eyebrows really, I gotta like step up my eyebrow game. So I went to my eyebrow girl. I told her I needed help. She was like, I think you're fine.
I know, I think you're fine too. Like, I think
but on camera, I'm telling you, I was like, damn, this really sucks. So, but I look at other girls' eyebrows and I'm like, wow, you just like have that nailed. Like they do the fluffy thing and you don't really have to do a ton of stuff to them. So mine are other people's eyebrows apparently because they're not my own.
We do this every week.
I
So
love
we
it.
change it up. It always, she'll go from like biceps to like, I don't even know what.
Well, yeah, you have to come up with something every week. So it has.
I love that. I'm like inner peace, and she's like
eyebrows. No, we do this. We
Well,
like say
I love
this.
that.
She said Hermione last week.
Yeah, Hermione Granger was mine. I
So
just
what's
read
yours?
all the 7 Harry
What's yours
Potters.
this week?
This week, I was gonna say what the thing that you were talking about. I think it's talent. Like, I think it's really cool when somebody has talent. Well, actually, no, I think it's a combination of having talent and then having the mindset to like be at the top of your game. And I think something that I realized recently was I actually don't want to date anyone who's not at the top or doesn't want to be at the top, mainly because like in their own respective way, like that could mean whatever to them, but I like talent and I want to be the best and I would like another person to want that too. So yeah, I think it's like having talent, but then also like having the mindset and like pursuing being the best you can, like the best period.
I love that. No,
That
it
would
also
be mine.
it raises your stuff too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really does. Like at every point in your life, there's moments or people or situations or circumstances where you either have to rise up or shrink down.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're around somebody that's constantly negative, like
Yeah.
it's a game where you're pulling them up, and eventually you're gonna get tired of pulling.
No, it's true.
You know?
And I think what you said too, when you were like, you know, I'm away a lot. So if I dated someone, they would have to understand that, like, even in that perspective, like I would be so down to be with somebody who wasn't like, who had to sacrifice time with me because they were trying to be one of the greats, because I would do the same thing. And like I think there's a lot of people who wouldn't want to do that, but I'm like, yeah, no, if you're winning and you're like at the top of your game, like I like that, the talent and like
The thing that I want to add to that too is like we talked about inner peace, we talked about, you know, like what you were talking about, talent and stuff like that. But I think one thing that's important when we talked about the dating stuff that I didn't say is most people complain about the things that are weighing them down and they don't realize they're the one doing the holding. You know what I
Such a
mean?
good
Like
point.
that's something that I think is so powerful, because
just
when you were saying that,
crop
I was like, I just thought about it, because when you're like, you know, if you think about it, when somebody else is out there and they're striving for something like crazy, the only thing you want to do is you want to support them, because you're like, I see how much it means to them. But then also you're like, I got this too. There's something in me
Yes.
inside that has some swagger, that has some confidence, that has something that I got
agree.
this too. I got
agree.
this too.
That's fire. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Well, Drew, thank you so much.
I know,
you
you're
hung
the
out
best.
with us for the longest amount of time, but we just knew coming into this that there was just no way we could squeeze this into like even an hour.
We've never done a 2-parter,
Never.
but we
Let's
had to.
go.
You were
because
the
we were
first
like,
time.
we knew.
Yeah, we just were like, there's no way. We have so many great things that we felt like you could touch on and bring perspective to. So thank you so much for coming to hang out with
Yeah,
us.
thank you.
You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you did not listen to part 1, go listen to it. It's an incredible episode. Please rate, review, subscribe, send to a friend.
Yes. Oh, and Drew, plug your socials so they can find you.
It's
And-
easy. Yeah, mine's just my name, Drew Hanlen, and then Pure Sweat for the basketball stuff, but
And it's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
everything.
Across
We've
the
got
board.
everything.
And go buy one of his first 10,000 copies of his book.
Yes,
Of course,
we
yeah.
all cannot wait. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find us on Instagram at SmartIsSexy, on YouTube, and on TikTok. And we'll be back next week. Thank you.